Morning, guys. It's all that stuff right there, if anyone cares what it's doing in Oklahoma. So got a message from Joe. His name is Rudderfy, yeah, something like that. Anyway, he had a question about the compressor setup, and so I'm going to go into a little bit more detail. Joe, this is for you. And so your question was, you had several questions, but here's how I've got this set up. I went and bought this, and you're correct, this is a 1/2 inch OD. So first of all, up here in the motor, what it used to do is it used to come from here straight down into the tank. Okay, so the issue was you got 200-degree air being forced down into this tank. So this tank was getting hot. I mean, it'd get real hot. Well, that moisture, heated moisture and all that, or the heat caused moisture, condensation, blah, blah, blah. Well, then it shoots it through your air lines. So basically, took that piece out, went to Home Depot, bought this. You can buy this in a coil. I don't know how many feet I got, but whatever it was, and I just cut it and bent it myself. Super easy to bend it. Anyway, you might have to play with your fittings here a little bit to get the right stuff to go, you know, how you need it. But anyway, I've got it going up through here, and it comes down through here. Well, then the kit that I bought came with this hose, and I thought I want to use that because I don't want hard line going straight into this, because this whole compressor shakes. So I wanted it to have some, you know, some flexibility there to where I wasn't going to end up snapping something. So then you can see, and it comes with all these fittings too, goes straight into here. And then, as you can see, and when I went to Home Depot, you can kind of see maybe got some little rubber tread type stuff in there. I just popped a hole in it and ran it down, and that way there would be a rubber insulator in there, so when this thing moves, it doesn't vibrate and cause it to, you know, some friction or whatever problems. So anyway, it goes all the way through that, then it comes out the bottom. Well, these connections come with it, same deal. Got this that came with it. Then I cut it and went into more of that line. Well, that line runs down into this water. Now, I honestly don't think this is necessary. I think it would work the same without it. The guy that I had seen that did this into like a 55-gallon drum of water. And to be honest with you, when I'm running the temps on this, I can hit this hose right here, and it's usually ambient temperature coming out of here. So this is probably overkill. So if you wanted to, you could literally run this straight around to your water separator and skip this completely, unless you wanted to. I just left it because it's working. So this is an expensive component here, and you might have heard this company called Rapid Air. Well, they make this 3/4. They got 3/4 inlet, 3/4 outlet, and it's hard to find these with the 3/4. And I wanted to keep my air supply lines as big as possible, so I'd have as much air moving, not pinch off any, you know, get any restrictions or whatever. This thing works fantastic. It was like 50 bucks though, so that's a pretty expensive little purchase. And I picked that. You can pick that up, you know, on eBay. You can go to rapidair.com probably or something, and they have them. It's got a max input of 175 psi. So it's a badass. So I just made this little guy right here to hook straight onto my, and you can see I put rubber behind it, that way everything's insulated where it's not messing up. And you can see back there, I just bolted it through with some lock washers and everything. Okay, so then it comes up into here and then goes straight down into your tank. Okay, that's pretty easy deal. Looks like my camera's getting ready to die. I'm gonna have to plug it in. But I got an outlet right here, so I may do that here in a second. Anyway, so that's kind of the setup of what I've got here. From there, it comes down, and then it comes out, and I've got another one of those And this is not the Rapid Air, it's a different brand, but it's the same setup. It's got the 3/4 inlet, 3/4 outlet. It's almost identical. I think I picked it up on, and a lot of guys say that this is really not a necessary deal, but you can see it's still got a couple of bubbles in there, so it is doing something. And then from there I went out with this big heavy duty piece of what is that, hydraulic hose. I think I picked that up at like a Tractor Supply place or whatever. Ran it straight into this. Now this is 3/4. I'm running 3/4 all the way out, 3/4 all the way up. It never gets any smaller than 3/4. I used all the shark bite fittings, which was probably a mistake, but they're really cool, and I can take this whole system apart and move it wherever I want and do whatever I want, because all you got to do is pop those little fittings and that stuff comes right off. So I can rearrange it. So for the convenience of that, I did that. But those shark bite fittings are like $6 to $8 per fitting, and of course I got quite a few fittings. Run it over here, run down. You got a shark bite T fitting there. That was probably $8 or $9. And then again we run into this, but it's all, everything in here, all this whole setup. Now here I brazed it. This is what I should have done to all of them, but I thought I wasn't that good at brazing. I thought it was probably harder than what it really is. So I just went ahead and bought these fittings, and it worked out fine. But like I said, I've got a ton of money in these. So if you want to just braze this, it'd be, these little fittings are so much cheaper. Anyway, and then straight up over, another shark bite, all the way over to that deal. And then it comes into the rubber hose and comes into my line here. So hope that answers your questions. As far as the drop in pressure, absolutely not. And let me show you. Here. So right now this is set at 120. Okay, that's 120 psi. This thing kicks. It'll kick back on at like 150. Let's see, I forgot what it goes to. It's like 175. Yeah, 175 psi max deal. It's 15.2 CFM. Anyway, so let's go over here real quick and I'll show you where it's coming out of my paint. Let me turn this on, and I put these T's in here because I don't want air running through these all the time. So for me, I teed these off to where the air stops right here. Now it still goes up to my air over there, but I didn't want moisture getting in these all the time because I'm not using them. So I only want to open them up when I'm using my paint setup. That was my logic on this. So I put the T's in here. So turn that one. Got this one. Okay, you can see right there. You come all the way up to 120 psi. And that's what I've got coming out of here. Well, most everything you're going to use or spray is going to be about 90 psi. When you're using your guns and stuff like that, I mean, you've got it dialed down to 25 psi or something like that. So you have tons of air at the wall. Also, I went, and this is extreme, I went to the extreme on everything, pretty much because I didn't know what the hell I was doing. These are huge fittings. All these are set up. They're the biggest fittings you can probably get. Same with this big industrial badass fitting to where you don't have any air. You won't have any problems with your, pinching any air down. Same with my paint guns. Like this one here is a normal one, just a little tiny one. Well, even my paint guns have this big ass fitting on the back side to where there's no air loss, pressure loss, anything like that. So you can see here 125 psi. I mean, literally there's no loss, and when you're running that, it keeps up fine. So I have no loss of pressure at all, and way more than I'll ever need for anything I'm going to be doing. So anyway, hope that helps. If you have any more questions, Joe, if I can help in any way, holler at me. Turn this off. I'll let that bleed out. I usually keep this off anyway. There goes that compressor. Alright. So yeah, I kind of keep this loose because there's probably a spring in there and I want this to stay accurate, so I let the spring loose on it. Alright. And today we are going to epoxy prime this. All I got to do is get that up there, clean it up, get this kind of douched out a little bit and get it cleaned up, and then I'm going to start spraying. Sorry, this just kicked on, so. Let me bring you back here in a second and I'll show you this too. Now you can see, if you watch this, it'll just sit and have water dripping down there. I mean, it literally picks up a ton of moisture in there. And I'll bring you back when this is getting ready to spit and show you how it works. Alright, now I had that opened up all the way and it's starting to bleed off now, but it is 175 PSI. This is opened all the way as much as it'll go, so it feeds in there. And you can hear it blowing off right now. Once this gets down to 0, this little gauge, it'll spit automatically all the water that it just collected in there. Now this is the first time today that's kicked on, so there won't be a whole lot of water, but when you run this continuously over and over using your air tools, this thing really gets a lot of water in here. Well, you got to figure if you didn't have this, all that water is going in through your air tools and through your line and all that kind of stuff. So another 40 PSI, it'll bleed down and then it'll spit. Like you can see here, this little pop off is just bleeding through. It's run my compressor up to what, probably 75, I'm guessing. It's somewhere in between 150 and 200, so it's run me up to that. Like I said, once it gets down to maybe 130 or so, or somewhere in that area, it kicks it back on and runs it back up to 175. So, here we go, I think. And I've showed this a couple times. You guys are probably bored of seeing this, but this is going to kick. It's almost at 0, and it automatically does this. We'll see how much water just in one. May not be a whole lot, but yeah, there wasn't a whole lot come out that time. But like I said, you sit and run this over and over to where this thing's running consistently, that thing will just puke tons of water out, which, like I said, would run all through your system. And then by the time it runs all the way through here, whatever else it has left in there, by that time, obviously it's not, it never makes it over there. So, and they say you need to have your dryers pretty far away from your compressor. And I have these water separators here, but that's just to collect that water. My dryers are pretty far away, or at least as far away as I'm going to ever need them. I mean, literally, I probably went across the deal and come over there with them or something, but I liked it the way it's set up. So, all right, guys, that'll be it for now. I'm going to get all this cleaned up, and I'll bring you back after I start shooting some epoxy. See ya.